communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. I'm your host, Jasmine McTague, coming to you live here from Jersey City, New Jersey. Now, the details at this time. Our first story of the hour. Former New York Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, one of the most powerful figures in the state government for 2 decades before his conviction on corruption charges, has died in federal custody. He was 77. Silver died Monday, a person familiar with the matter told Associated Press. The person could not discuss the matters publicly and spoke to AP on conditions of amnesty. The cause of death wasn't immediately available. Silver's supporters had said he was in failing health from multiple medical conditions. He had been serving time at Prison Medical Center in Massachusetts. Silver's condition had worsened in recent weeks, and he had been taken to a hospital near the facility where he died, the person said. The Manhattan Democrat, who told a judge he prayed he would not die in prison, had been serving a more than 6-year sentence for using his clout in state government to benefit real estate developers who rewarded Silver by referring lucrative business to his law firm. Silver's conviction ended a nearly 4-decade career in the assembly. He first won a seat representing Manhattan's Lower East Side in 1976, though he cut a low-key figure in the halls of the state capitol, carefully parsing out comments in the baritone mumble. He was consummate practitioner of the Albany inside game. He became Assembly Speaker in 1994, a powerful position that made him one of Albany's 3 men in the room, negotiating annual budgets and major legislations with the governor and state Senate leaders. In all, Silver served as Speaker during the tenure of 5 New York governors, from Mario Cuomo to Andrew Cuomo. For more than 2 decades, he held back a tide of repressive legislation while advancing an agenda that provided equity, justice, and opportunity for all. Democratic Assembly member Kevin Cahill of Hudson Valley said in a prepared statement, "In Orthodox Jews, Silver was known to observe Sabbath even during the marathon negotiation sessions that preceded annual budget deadlines and the end of legislative sessions." Silver gave up his leadership position following his arrest in January 2015 and lost his legislative seat upon his first conviction that November. Silver joined a long list of state lawmakers, including other top leaders who have been sentenced for crimes including bribery, conspiracy, tax evasion, fraud, and racketeering. One of the leaders with whom he shared power during his time as Speaker, Republican State Senator Majority Leader Dean Scullos, was convicted of extortion, wire fraud, and bribery in a case that moved through the courts at roughly the same time as Silver's case. Governor Andrew Cuomo, who had shared power with Silver's, resigned from office last summer amid a sexual harassment allegations. Silver was furloughed from prison for several days in May before federal authorities denied him confinement. Silver was the youngest of the four children of Russian immigrants. His father ran a wholesale hardware store, and as an adult, he and his wife had four children and lived in lower Manhattan apartment blocks from his first home. He received a bachelor's degree from Yeshiva University and a law degree from Berkeley Law School. On to the next story of the hour. More than 1,800 people were victims of a carjacking in Chicago last year, but the crisis is not only in the city. Suburban Cook County is also dealing with spikes in thefts and carjacking. So we want to know, are certain cars more likely to be targeted? CBS 2 Tara Molina looked at the county's data for answers. It turns out Jeep is one of the top makes targeted, with the top model targeted being the Grand Cherokee. The purpose here is not to worry anyone, but to inform, since there is information available about how you can best protect yourself. Chances are you've noticed that we have investigated the spiking crimes for years now at CBS2, as the Cook County Sheriff's Office continued to collect data not only meant to stop those driving the crisis, but also to inform those behind the wheel. As we've accumulated more data and as we made more arrests, and as we've done more interviews, we're becoming much, much more knowledgeable on what they're up to and how they're doing it, said the county sheriff Tom Dart. The data shows some of the most common cars targeted are sedans and sports utility vehicles, which represents 47.72% and 41.9% of all carjacked vehicles. Other types of cars only make up single-digit percentages. Specifically, Toyota Camrys are most popular, accounting for 3.61% of all carjacked vehicles. Sheriff Dart said that is because they are the number one car on the road. As to the method breakdowns, most carjacking involved an ambush. A total of 48.43% of ambushes on foot and 21.96% are an ambush from another vehicle. Meanwhile, 10.33% of carjacking targets ride shares and 6.51% are ambush gas stations. In suburban Cook County, for example, we received more carjacking at gas stations, Dart said. Dart said carjackers' motives vary, but for those who are doing it for the thrills are most dangerous. For those ones that are doing it for their twisted little thrills they're getting out of it, that's harder to defend against because you don't know when and that's going to pop up, he said. But Dart said one thing is common, though, every interview, everywhere, and it's something every driver should know right now. That is that people need to be aware and engaged. That's why Sheriff Dart says the best thing you can do on the road is keep your head on a swivel. You should stay alert and aware of other people and drivers around you, and make sure, for example, that no one has boxed you in. I think a lot of this is going to come down to people being aware that they were in a different time now, Dart said. Tara, we've heard we're off to a good start in 2022 when it comes to these crimes. What do the numbers look like? And the following is a breakdown of carjacking incidents and recoveries. The data combines Chicago and suburban Cook County. On to our next story of the hour. A man is accused of stealing about 100 pounds of explosives from Nevada mills and then storing them in his truck and a Henderson hotel room. Federal officers arrested Evan Atkinson, 38, of California on January 4th outside of a hotel on Boulder Highway in Henderson. Court document says Atkinson is accused of stealing the explosives, which include detonating cords, boosters, and dynamites from a mill in Hawthorne, Nevada, which is mineral country, investigators say. Investigators connected Atkinson to the alleged crime through location data and by connecting his vehicle registrations, they said. Officers found Atkinson at the motel on January 4th as he was moving some of the explosives from his truck to a hotel room, they said. Officers evacuated the hotel as they recovered the stolen explosives. Atkinson appeared in a federal court Monday where he pleaded not guilty. He faces multiple counts related to his incident, including theft of explosive materials and improper storage of explosives. If convicted, he faces a maximum of 10 years in prison for each count. Several police agencies aided in the investigations, including the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and the Mineral County Sheriff's Office, and the Henderson Police Department, the FBI, and Las Vegas Metro Police. On to the next story of the hour. The U.S. Coast Guard searched on Tuesday for 39 people missing from several days after a boat believed to be used for human smuggling capsized off of Florida's coast en route from the Bahamas. The Good Samaritan called the Coast Guard early Tuesday after rescuing a man clinging to a boat 45 miles east of Fort Pierce. The Maritime Security Agency reported on Twitter. The man said he was with a group of 39 others that left the island of Bimini in Bahamas on Saturday night. He said the boat capsized in severe weather and no one was wearing life jackets. The survivors were brought to a hospital for symptoms of dehydration and sun exposure. The Coast Guard is calling it as a suspected human smuggling case. Officials say on Twitter that they are searching by both air and sea over a roughly 135 miles area extending from Benin to the Fort Prince Inlet. A cold front late Saturday brought rough weather to the Bimini area. Tom Sewell, a local bonefish guide, said there were 20 miles per hour winds and fierce squalls of rain on Sunday into Monday. Migrants have long used the islands of Bahama as a stepping stone to reach Florida and the United States. They typically try to take advantage of the breaks in weather to make the crossing, but the vessels are often dangerously overloaded and prone to capsizing. There have been thousands of deaths over this year. The Coast Guard patrols the water around Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and the Bahamas. For the most part, the migrants are from Haiti and Cuba, but the Royal Bahamas Defense Forces has reported apprehending migrants from other parts of the world, including from Colombia, Ecuador, earlier this month. On Friday, the Coast Guard found 88 Haitians in an overloaded sail freight west of Great Inagua, Bahamas. Navigating the Florida Straits, windwards, and Mona passages is extremely dangerous and can result in loss of life, the Coast Guard said in a statement last weekend. Last July, the Coast Guard rescued 13 people after their boat capsized off the Key West as Tropical Storm Elsa approached. The survivors said they had left Cuba with 22 people on board. 9 went missing in the waters. And now, a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Now the story of the hour. Philadelphia's police are searching for multiple suspects involved in a two-armed robbery incident. Police responded around midnight Tuesday to the 6100 block of West Passyunk Avenue in southwest Philadelphia. Officers chased an alleged suspect into a lot of a nearby junkyard. K-9 units and police helicopters assisted with the search, but the suspects were not located. Police say no one was injured during the robbery. Hours earlier, a man was shot while trying to escape an attempted robbery in the Brewery Town neighborhood. Police say two suspects ambushed the 49-year-old victim as he left the corner store on the 2600 block of West Montgomery Avenue around 6 p.m. Monday. There was a struggle and the victim dropped his bag and started to run. Police say two suspects ambushed the 49-year-old victim as he left the corner store. When one suspect shot the victim in the hip and the leg. He was taken to the hospital in stable condition. The suspects were last seen in a small gray SUV, possibly a Nissan. Anyone with information is asked to call police. On to the next story of the hour. The San Mateo County Coroner's Office has released the identity of the man SFPD shot and killed at SFO last week as 37-year-old Nelson Wenensi Zeto had a replica gun, according to the San Mateo County DA. There is no known city of residence for Zeto, according to the coroner's office. The ABC 7 News and I team exclusively learned Thursday afternoon that the man San Francisco police shot and killed at San Francisco International Airport was not armed with real guns. The San Mateo County District Attorney explained that they were airsoft replica guns, and the Attorney General's office has now taken over the investigation. Just 3 a.m., the San Francisco Police Department responded to San Francisco's International Airport after receiving multiple calls for a suspicious man. He appeared to be armed with handguns, said SFPD spokesperson Officer Grace Gatpandan. Officer Gatpandan would not specify the de-escalation tactics officers used, but did say that interaction was approximately 45 minutes. It was enough time to get resources to this location to help de-escalate the situation, said Gatpandan. Officers shot and killed the man. Police have not said how many officers fired their weapons or how many shots were fired. The San Francisco police officer Kenneth Cha has been charged with voluntary manslaughter after a man he shot in 2017 died from his injuries. The San Mateo County District Attorney's Office was initially investigating until this afternoon when the Attorney General's office was called in to take over. San Mateo County District Attorney Steve Wegstaffy says that because the guns the suspect had were not real firearms, what they determined was those firearms were airsoft guns, said Wegstaffy. In other words, Wegstaffy says, replicas. Whenever there's a fatal shooting by a law enforcement officer of what is defined as an unarmed person, the district attorney office does not conduct the investigation. That will be conducted under the law of the Attorney General's office, and that is what happened here, said Wegstaffy. Wegstaffy says that the suspect also had a knife. He saw pictures of the two guns. They obviously looked real to me, said Wegstaffy. If I were standing and a man across from me was holding those, I would assume he had a firearm that could be used to harm me, he continued. Sorry he lost his life, but better than an innocent person, said Cheryl Comfort Brown. San Francisco police say a bystander was injured and treated on the scene. He was taken to a local hospital with no life-threatening injuries. There are many cameras around SFO. Investigators have not said how the man got inside the terminal and whether or not he looked if he took BRT. Police say there is no indication of terrorism was involved. We cannot expect our law enforcement to try and engage in a concept of, well, it is real or not real. By then, it may be too late, said Wegstaffy. California Attorney General Rob Bonta announced in a press release Thursday that California Department of Justice is investigating and will independently review this case. Under Assembly Bill 1506, AB 1506, state prosecutors are required to investigate incidents involving officers that resulted in the death of an unarmed person. Now on to the next story of the hour. Houston Police Chief Troy Finners has identified 51-year-old Oscar Rosales as the suspect of a hit and run after Harris County Precinct 5 Constable's corporal was shot and killed in an ambush over the weekend. Finners said Rosales, who is considered armed and dangerous, is tied to Corporal Charles Galloway's murder based on video evidence showing the suspect shooting the 47-year-old law enforcement officer. Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg said $60,000 award is being offered to capture Rosales, whom authorities believe is still in the Houston area. This is a murderer. This is a ruthless, savage execution, said Precinct 5 Constables Ted Heap. We will not stop until this individual is apprehended, whether it's on the federal or state or local level. People are looking right now and will not cease looking until he is apprehended. Ogg also announced 2 of Rosales' relatives were charged with tampering with evidence in the case. According to the court records, Rena Marquez and Henry Mauricio Pereira Marquez, who are identified as Rosales' wife and brother-in-law, respectively, are accused of trying to cover up the suspect's involvement in the case. A key clue against Rosales, the suspect's vehicle was confiscated as part of a felony tampering account, Finners said. The pair appeared in Harris County Probable Cause Court on Monday. The new information comes as more tributes come out for Galloway, who leaves behind a daughter and sister. Galloway's joined Precinct 5 is in 21 joined Precinct 5 in 2009 and served for over 12 years, he said. He's most recent served in a toll road division as a field training officer. Officials say he will be remembered by the numerous deputies he's trained and mentored. Galloway was attempting a traffic stop around 12:45 a.m. Sunday in the 9100 block of Beach Nut, according to police. He pulled over a newer model white Toyota Avalon, and the driver got out and immediately fired repeatedly at Galloway's patrol car, investigators say. Galloway was shot multiple times and died at the scene in what investigators are calling an ambush attack. Charging documents read in court for Rosales' relatives state that Avalon was later found at an apartment complex where Rena Marquez and Henry Mauricio Pereira Marquez were seen wiping down the doors and interior. ABC 13 talks to neighbors who say they witnessed the cleanup. Surveillance videos obtained by ABC 13 shows a man walking away from the vehicle. Hours later, and after siblings' arrest, police towed it away. Galloway is one of 3 Precinct 5's deputies killed in the line of duty. Officials say all 3 of them were assigned to the toll road shift. Now on to the next story of the hour. A young Black person loved them some Atlanta. Young Black people love some Atlanta. I've heard it called the Mecca of young Black professionals. Believe it or not, there have been comparisons to the fictional city of Wakanda. There is no question Atlanta is a bustling city. It is one of the fastest growing cities in America. According to the U.S. Census, Atlanta grew by more than 75,000 people in 2019. The city estimates about by 2040, there could be 1.2 million people living within city limits. Atlanta's celebrity culture and its business first mindset makes it a desirable location for Black folks looking for a better life. With 52% of Atlanta's population being Black, one could assume all this growth means Black folks in Atlanta should be winning, but sadly they're not. The perception is nothing like its reality. Atlanta is plagued with economic disparities, all of which have devastating effects on Black families in the city. According to the Atlanta Wealth Building, initiatives in the city of Atlanta led the nation's in income inequality and lack of economic mobility. The median income per household for white families in Atlanta is $82,722 compared to the $28,105 for a Black family. It's not just poor families who are feeling the effects of income inequality. Among more affluent African American communities, Black families are less likely to have access to cash and savings. According to the AWB, about 70% of Black families in Atlanta are liquid asset poor compared to just 22% of white families. How is this a mecca for Black people? They tell you to come to Atlanta if you're Black and want to make a come up. But what they don't mention is that folks coming up in Atlanta are white. According to the Atlanta Regional Commission, the highest paid industry in the metro Atlanta are all dominated by non-Hispanic white workers. The disparities start at a very young age, continuing through adulthood. Black people in Atlanta make less money than their white counterparts, no matter the education level. According to Biz Journal, the gap in the earnings is greatest among those with bachelor's, master's, and professional degrees. How can Atlanta be Wakanda when almost 86% of its homeless population is Black? There are about 50,000 kids enrolled in the city's public school system. About 3,000 of them are particularly homeless. Atlanta's false claim to be the place for Black prosperity is nothing more than a ruse to keep the Black dollar pouring into the city. Income equality, lack of economic mobility, and homelessness all bred poverty, which then leads to violence. Political leaders get to use violence to secure their votes and win their elections. Meanwhile, Black people in Atlanta are told that their hustle and their grind leads to success. That's a lie. For new Mayor Andre Dickens, the issue of income inequality are high on his list of problems to tackle. During a roundtable with media, Dickens reiterated his plans to build and preserve 20,000 affordable housing units in 8 years. He also plans to raise pay for city employees and have other ideas increasing the city's revenue to improve salaries. Atlanta isn't a bad place to live at all. It almost feels right to be Black in Atlanta. Blackness as a movement has seeped into the culture of the city, but its economic disparities towards Black people should not be ignored. You cannot call yourself Wakanda when all the poor and helpless, homeless are Blacks and all the good jobs are going to the white men. That just sounds like regular America, if you ask me. And now, a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Now, the story of the hour. Prosecutors at a federal trial of 3 former Minneapolis police officers charged with violating George Floyd's civil rights are trying to show that even bystanders knew the Black man needed help, while the officers failed to act as former officer Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck. Footage shown to the jurors at the trial of J. Alexander Kuhn, Thomas Lane, and Tao Thao showed Floyd struggling with the officers as they tried to put him in the police vehicle. Officers holding the handcuffed man face down on the ground and Floyd gasping for air as a growing group of onlookers warned that Chauvin was killing him. Floyd, 46, died after Chauvin knelt on his neck for 9.5 minutes. Cunyan knelt on Floyd's back. Lane held his legs, and Thao kept bystanders back, according to prosecutors. Prosecutors have argued in pre-trial filings that even bystanders could see that Floyd was in serious need of medical attention and that the officers who had basic medical training did not help. Witness Charles McMillan wept Tuesday as prosecutors played the video in which McMillan pleaded with officers to let Floyd breathe, prompting a warning from the judge that the prosecutors were to avoid eliciting emotional responses. Cunnan, who is black, Lane, who is white, and Thao, who is Hmong American, are charged with depriving Floyd of his constitutional rights. All three are charged for failing to provide Floyd with medical care, while Thao and Cunnan face on additional court for failing to stop Chauvin, who is white. Both counts allege the officers' actions resulted in Floyd's death. Chauvin pleaded guilty in November to federal civil rights violation. Video shown to jurors was from police body cameras, street surveillance videos, and widely viewed bystander videos that also was played extensively in the state criminal trial that eventually convicted Chauvin of murder last year. Police have responded to the 911 call that Floyd tried to use a counterfeit $20 bill to buy a pack of cigarettes at the corner store on May 25th, 2020. His killing triggered a worldwide protest and re-examination of racism in policing. Earlier, a video from Tao's body camera that was played during the testimony of the cashier who took the counterfeit bill showed him pushing an onlooker. Christopher Martin, 20, said he recorded about 30 seconds of the video as bystanders were yelling at Thao to check Floyd's pulse, but stopped when Thao pushed the man over. Martin said he did not have a good view of Kun or Lane. Lane, Kun, and Thao also faced separate state trials in June on charges they aided and abetted both murder and manslaughter. On to the next story of the hour. The U.S. Coast Guard searched on Tuesday for 39 people missing from several days after a boat believed to be used for human smuggling capsized off of Florida's coast en route from Bahamas. A Good Samaritan called the Coast Guards early Tuesday after rescuing men clinging to a lifeboat 45 miles east of Fort Pierce. The Maritime Security Agency reported on Twitter. The man said he was a group of 39 others that left the island Bimini in the Bahamas on Saturday night. He said the boat capsized in severe weather and that no one was wearing life jackets. The survivor was brought to the hospital for symptoms of dehydration and sun exposure. The Coast Guard is calling it as a suspected human smuggling case. Officials said on Twitter that they are searching for both air and sea for roughly 135 miles, area extending from Bimini to Fort Pierce Inlet. On Friday, the Coast Guards found 88 Haitians in an overloaded sail freight west of Great Iguan, Bahamas. Navigating the Florida Straits, windward, and Mona Passage is extremely dangerous and can result in loss of life. The Coast Guard said in a statement last week that last July, the Coast Guards rescued 13 people after their boat capsized off of Key West as Tropical Storm Elsa was approaching. The survivors said they have left Cuba with 22 people on board and 9 went missing in the waters. On to the next story of the hour. Wild volatility in the stock market this week has put heightened scrutiny on the Federal Reserve meeting Wednesday and whether the Fed will clarify just how fast the plan is to tighten credits and potentially slow the economy. With the high inflation squeezing customers and businesses, the Fed is expected to signal that it will raise its benchmark short-term interest rates in March in a dramatic reversal of the ultra-low rate policies it imposed during the pandemic recession. To further the tightening credit, the Feds also plan to end its monthly bond purchases in March. And later this year, it may start reducing huge stockpiles of Treasury and mortgage bonds. Investors fear there may be a still more to come. Some on Wall Street worry that on Wednesday, the Fed may signal a forthcoming half-point increase in its key rates. There is also concerns that the news conference, Federal Chair Jerome Powell could suggest that the central bank will raise rates more times this year than 4 hikes most economics expect. Another wild card, particularly for Wall Street, in the Fed's bond holding. As recently as September, those holdings are growing by $120 billion a month. The bonds purchases, which the Fed's finances by creating money, were intended to reduce long-term rates to spur borrowing and spending. Many investors saw the bond buying as helping fuel stock market gains by pouring cash into a financial system. Earlier this month, minutes of the Fed's December meetings revealed that the central bank was considering reducing its bond holdings by not replacing bonds that mature, a more aggressive step than just ending the purchases. Analysts now forecast that the Fed could bring shrinking its holding as early as July, much sooner than what is expected even a few months ago. The impact of reducing the Fed's bond stockpile isn't well known, but the last time the Fed raised rates and reduced its balance sheet simultaneously was in 2018. The S&P 500 stock index tumbled 20% in 3 months. If, as expected, the Fed raises its key rates in March by a quarter point, it would lift the rate to ranging of 0.25% to 0.5%, up from near zero. The Fed's moves are likely to make wide range of borrowing, from mortgages to credit cards to auto loans and corporate credits, more expensive. Those higher borrowing costs in turn could slow spending and weaken corporate profits. The gravest risk is the Federal's abandonment of low rates, which have nurtured the economy and financial market for years, could trigger another recession. Those worries have sent stock prices fluctuating wildly. The Dow Jones average plunged more than 1,000 points during Monday's trading session before recovering and finishing with a modest gain. On Tuesday, the S&P 500 closed down at 1.2%, steadily declines since the start of the year have lifted the S&P down nearly 10%, the level that investors define as a correction. But not replacing some scrutinies, the Fed is in fact reduces demands of Treasury. These raises their yields and makes borrowing more expensive. Yet some analysts say that they aren't sure how big the impact on interest rates will be or how much the Fed will rely on reducing its balance sheets to affect interest rates. On to the next story of the hour. The trenches are dusted with snow and tinged with soot and dirt. Dull colors will cling to them for weeks to come, as the men inside search for enough cell phone signals to hear the latest from the distant capital that will decide their fate. Moscow, Washington, London, Paris, Berlin, Vienna. Sometimes Kyiv, but only sometimes. These Ukrainians are far from the Russian ships ahead to the naval exercise off the coast of Ireland, from the American-built fighter jets streaming to the Baltic, and from the U.S. aircraft carriers steadily sailing the Mediterranean. As a Western supply weapon lands by the plane load in Kyiv, soldiers and civilians alike wait here with helpless anticipation for a decision made by the people who know little about Ukraine and even less about the eastern front lines. The battle weary region near where Russia has massed tens of thousands of soldiers in troop buildups that US President Joe Biden said could mount to the largest invasion since World War II. Zolote 1 through 5 got their names decades ago during the Soviet era. The name means golden when they were labeled as a unit of local coal mining operations. Now 1 in 4 are in Ukraine and 5 sits less than a kilometer or half a mile away across the checkpoint. The sense of waiting for someone else's decision has also infected the nearby village of Nivka, which bears the scar of 8 years of shelling. The newer trenches, which are heated by a rough wood stove whose warmth draws nearly as many as dogs and cats as soldiers. The luckiest trench cats get taken back by soldiers when they rotate off the front. Moscow denies it's planning an assault, but the United States and its NATO allies are preparing for a possible war, bolstering their presence in the Baltic and putting 8,500 American troops on high alert for a potential deployment to Europe. Britain and the US have sent multiple plane loads of weapons to Ukraine. Ukrainian officials have accepted the help, but found themselves in the sidelines of several rounds of high-stake diplomacy that so far have not yielded a breakthrough. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said earlier this month after one such meeting. And now a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News 24/7. Stay tuned.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome to Millennium News 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Now the story of the hour. In Comanche, a Perpetua indigenous community of about 10,000 inhabitants nestled high in the pine-clad mountains of the western state of Michoacan. The whole town survives because of the money sent home by migrants working in the United States. That money, known as remittance, kept families fed after local woodworking sales dropped off a decade ago when pipe lumber started to become scarce. The money has allowed their families to remain in Comachan rather than moving to the other parts of Mexico for work. That and the fact kids spend much of the year with their mothers and grandparents has helped preserve the Papacha language among almost everyone in town. The traditional textile, woodworking, and construction live on largely because such enterprises are funded by migrants who send money home to build houses here. Many things here, the church, the bull ring, the charity donations, are paid by migrants. The Mexican government believes remittance last year will surpass $50 billion for the first time. But whether the remittance allows families to just survive or progress through so that their children won't have to migrate varies, reflecting a person's plan and outlook. The cold winter mornings in Comachin are the throwbacks to another era. The men are back in town because of the seasonal law of agriculture in the United States. Many workers from Kumachin get H-2A temporary U.S. work visas, while others go without documentations. Hundreds of men here work at some vegetable farms in upstate New York every year, planting onions, harvesting squash, cabbages, and beans. Porfirio Gabriel, an organizer who recruits workers to go north, estimates that one farm alone has brought $5 million into the town over 3 years, by far its largest single source of income. Inhabitants exchange greetings in Papacha as they pass each other in the narrow streets. At one end of town, three drivers had their team of oxen through the streets and into the surrounding hills to hold down freshly cut pine trunks on narrow carts. The tree trunks are laid in the streets in front of homes of those who purchase them to be sawn down and backyard workshops. The roar of wood lathe mixed with the shout of men hauling bricks and wheelbarrows of sand, gravel into half-built houses. Comachen comes alive in winter. Jose Gonzalez, 55, works at a corner shop that he remodeled, stockened, and extended with money he has earned over decades working in the United States. Gonzalez, who has stern, thoughtful face of an indigenous drill sergeant, says he used to do woodworking, but it wasn't enough to meet our basic needs. After working in the fields of Mexico for a while, he headed to migrate. Now, while stock stores sells canned goods and foods to the families of migrants. Omar Gabriel, 28, sells sand, gravel, cement, and rebar to migrants who are building or expanding their homes in Comachin with money they've earned in the U.S. Gabriel, one of the younger and better educated of the migrant workers, study accounting at the university nearby. He has plans that don't include forever going north to plant onions each spring. Continuing on. The Mexico remittance, the money migrants send home to their relatives, have soared in the past 2 years and are now expected to top 50 billion for the first time since 2021 figures are added up. That would surpass almost all other source of Mexican foreign income. But as happy as the Mexican government is about the news, it calls the migrants heroes. The boom raises questions. Will Mexicans always have to migrate? It is sustainable or just blip fueled in part by U.S. government pandemic support payment. In many rural places such as Kumachin, Michoacan, every store, business, and family depends on remittance. Without the remittances that migrants sent back to their families here in Kumachin, the town will have no life, said Porfolio Gabriel, who has spent nearly 13 years working on the farm of the United States and now recruits and supervises people to go north. Remittances as a percentage of Mexico's GDP have almost doubled over the past decades, growing from 2% of GDP in 2010 to 3.8% in 2020, according to the government. Between 2010 and 2020, the percentage of households in Mexico receiving remittance grew from 3.6% to 5.1%. For the first time in 11 months of 2021, remittance grew by almost 27%. Mexico is now the third largest receiver of remittances in the world, behind only India and China. And Mexico now counts for about 6.1% of the world's remittance, according to a government report. On one hand, the spike was simply a matter of need, caused in part by a coronavirus pandemic. Mexico's GDP shrank 8.5% in 2020, and while the economy recouped about 4.7% of that loss in the first 3 quarters of 2021, growth appeared to have slowed and inflation spiked in the last quarter. When the Mexican families suffer illnesses or their household suffers damage, they receive more. Why? Because basically they are asked for help. And that is why I think happened here last year, said Augustine Escobar, a professor of Mexico Center for Research in Higher Education and Social Anthropology. Ironically, part of that growth may have been fueled by a temporary decrease several years ago in the numbers of new Mexican migrants heading to the United States and a decline in the relative percentage of migrants without proper documents. Escobar said that the main established migrants faces less wage competitions from a new, young, undocumented arrivals. But how much it can continue to improve in the future is an open question, he added. And the fact that a smaller percentage of Mexican migrants don't have proper documentation than before means more qualified for U.S. pandemic support payments in 2020. On to the next story of the hour. With former President Donald Trump holding off on making a new endorsement for Pennsylvania's closely watched Republican primary for U.S. Senate, former hedge fund CEO David McCormick is turning to other influencers in the party in hopes of generating conservative enthusiasm. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, who endorsed McCormick last week, headlined a rally for the candidate on Tuesday at a Sikh shooting facility near Allentown that doubled as McCormick's first public campaign appearance. It was a preview of McCormick's campaign strategy of enlisting an all-star roster of party stalwarts and Trump White House insiders, including advisors Hope Hicks and Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, who is now running for Arkansas governor. The contest in Pennsylvania for the seat being vacated by retiring Republican Senator Pat Toomey is expected to be among a handful of competitive races this year that will determine control of the Senate. As state sentiments echoed by Cruz as he stomps from McCormick and point to the Senate Democratic leader of New York, Chuck Schumer, Pennsylvania could very well decide this entire election, Cruz said. The Senate is in balance. I believe if we win in Pennsylvania, we will defeat Chuck Schumer. And if we also lose in Pennsylvania, I think it's all likelihood Schumer remains a majority leader. In recent weeks, a Republican primary field for Pennsylvania's Senate seat has reset after the Trump-endorsed candidate Shane Parnell pulled out of the race amid an ugly custody battle with his estranged wife. The National Party is officially neutral, and officials don't expect Trump to make another endorsement in the race anytime soon. The candidates are working towards win favor with state committee members ahead of endorsement vote on February 5th. And so for now, the surrogate will have to do. McCormick is able to draw high levels of support through his experience in Washington as a top official, President George Washington Bush administration, and through the influence of his wife, Donna Powell, a former deputy national security advisor in the Trump administration. He is also well known in high finances as a former CEO of Bridgewater Associates, one of the world's largest hedge funds. Before going over McCormick's long resume as a Gulf War combat veteran and senior government official, Cruz told the crowd, "Let me tell you something about this guy. He is badass." Still, McCormick has several hurdles to overcome. One, he just got into the race barely 2 weeks ago. Two, he's just moved back to Pittsburgh after living in Washington and Connecticut since 2005, raising cries for carpetbaggery from rivals. Three, he is relatively unknown to voters, especially considering that his primary rival includes Jeff Bertos, the GOP's endorsed candidate for lieutenant governor in 2018, and Mehmet Oz, the heart surgeon, wellness author, and TV personality who carries unrivaled name recognitions as the host of daytime TV's Dr. Oz show. And on to the next story and final story of the hour. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced Tuesday she will seek re-election, ending speculations that she would retire as Democrats face the threat of losing control of Congress in 2022's midterm. While we have made progress, much more needs to be done to improve people's lives, the 81-year-old Pelosi said in an online video. This election is crucial. Nothing less is at stake than our democracy, she added. By announcing she would seek a 19th term, Pelosi avoids becoming the lame duck in the year when Democrats are clinging to a fragile majority in the House and party is under pressure to raise vast sums of money to defend control of Congress. Her decision to remain in chambers follows announcements by 29 House Democrats that they won't seek re-elections this year, compared to 13 Republicans as the GOP looks towards taking back the House. The party that controls the White House typically loses seats in Congress in midterm elections, and Democrats are defending both chambers at the time when President Joe Biden's approval rating have been slipping. Our democracy is at risk because the assault on the truth, assault on the U.S. Capitol, and the state-by-state assault on voting rights, she added. In the video, Pelosi never addressed if she is intending to seek another term as a House Democratic leader if reelected. The San Francisco Democrat made history 15 years ago when she became the first female Speaker of the House. She has served Congress since 1987. Earlier this month, in an interview with the Associated Press, Pelosi only hinted at another run, saying she may seek re-election. In Twitter post, California's Republican Kevin Kelly, a congressional candidate and state assemblyman, said Pelosi's announcement was all the more reason we need Republicans in Congress who will fight. Pelosi will be an overwhelming favorite in her heavily Democratic district. She won with 78% of the votes in 2020, but she is also running at a time when her hometown had been criticized for sick-hole and crime, including daytime shooting in tourist areas. widespread homelessness, and smash and grab thefts at high-end stores. And this was the daily local news updates of Millennium News 24/7. Log in to get the latest news. All of our social networking sites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, is Millennium News 24. Our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers now on both networking, broadcasting, Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, also all smart TV platforms. Please enjoy our entertainment and latest news and views. Our Millennium TV app, Millennium TV USA and Android, Millennium News Google, www.millenniumtv24.com. Stay with Millennium News 24. Thank you for watching.